is that you and me and no one else, not the young man...
He didn't break any laws. People on January 6th broke laws. What law did Al Green break?
I understand. Rules,
decorum.
Rules.
I mean,
No,
Shannon
no,
Watts. No, let's just go back to decorum 1 second, because you gave a very long answer at the beginning. You just bypassed the decorum.
Yeah.
You did bring up decorum and civility in your original remarks.
I did.
Shannon Watts, who's a gun control activist, you may know her, founder of Moms Demand Action, she had this viral post. She said, democracy dies in decorum. Kind of riff on the post, democracy dies in darkness. She's right, isn't she? Democracy's on the line, and people like you are talking about decorum.
Mehdi Hasan invited a Democratic congressman named Jim Himes to his show on Zateo, where he criticized him for aligning with MAGA. We're going to watch these clips featuring Mehdi Hasan and Jim Himes, and I have some opinions to share as well. Let's check it out together.
I think there's a lot of ways to fight righteous battles. Think of the civil rights movement. Malcolm X was part of that. Stokely Carmichael, fairly radical, right? Martin Luther King, criticized by radicals for being way too accommodating and moderate. You know who else was important? John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Baines Johnson. I think it's a mistake to get into the question of, do you want to be John F. Kennedy or do you want to be Malcolm X? All of those elements are really important. But I'm going to acknowledge that focusing on decorum is the wrong thing to do. I probably should have said the rules. And I'm going to acknowledge that rules and laws are different. But they are alike in the way that if we are to live in a society of laws and rules, we have to take off the table that I can break a rule or a law simply because I have strong conviction. This is why a young man murders the CEO of United Healthcare. He had strong conviction. This is why, to bring up another potentially sore topic, too many people seek to justify the extremely aggressive, brutal war on Gaza because of the horridness of the murder of 1,200 Israelis.
Those are killings and crimes we can disagree. Al Green saying the president has no mandate is not in the same moral or political universe.
You see, you're lawyering me here because it's not what he said that matters. He took a decision consciously to break a rule. And of course I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the same as a law against murder.
You say you voted against Joe Wilson, to censure Joe Wilson.
Yeah.
That was, 15 years ago. In the last 3 years, we had Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert repeatedly, abusively interrupt the president. Did you vote to censure them?
So the censure votes have not been about behavior. They've been about speech. They went after Adam Schiff. They went after Rashida Tlaib. They went after, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Like for like, Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up and screamed at Biden in a way that Al Green did not do. That's not why she was called censored. That's what I'm asking. Did you censure her for what she did at a State of the Union?
Aren't we outraged? Well, so remember,
a lot of people are upset about the double standard. An elderly black man is removed from the House and censured. 2 white Republican women abused Biden in a way that Al Green did not do to Trump, and they did not get censured.
And I watched there through this speech as Marjorie Taylor Greene wore her hat. That's a violation of the rules. And the speaker didn't do anything about that. Now, we both feel outrage. Outraged that Marjorie Taylor Greene was not held to account by the speaker who held Al Green to account. Why do we feel outrage? Because they refused to police our own. And it therefore follows logically, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should celebrate the fact that we are willing to police our own.
No, I think the argument from a lot of people who are upset with you is that Democrats cannot continue fighting in this way. It's as if you're playing football, and when I say football, I'm being British, soccer, and you're playing 2 teams, and the other team keeps picking up the ball and running with it, and you insist we will carry on dribbling. You will lose in every occasion. At some point, you have to adapt to your circumstance.
Yeah.
Mehdi Hasan has nailed it, and it's why I'm seriously concerned about the Democrats potentially messing up the 2026 midterms. Generally, it's expected that the Democrats will likely reclaim the House and have an outside chance at the Senate, but this kind of hesitant thinking from Democrats like Jim here makes me anxious that they might botch it. Mehdi Hasan uses an analogy about grabbing a soccer ball and running with it, or something along those lines. My favorite metaphor is this: you're in a basketball game, and the Republicans or MAGA are on the opposite team. Every time the Democrats have possession, MAGA comes at them with knives, breaking all the rules, while the Democrats try to stick to the game's regulations. And then there are the refs, the Supreme Court in this case, who overlook the Republicans' infractions but would penalize the Democrats for the slightest infraction. Yet, the need to fight remains, and that's what people like Jim Himes lack. All this focus on decorum, rules, and formalities. Sure, you shouldn't sink to MAGA's level, but you need to be flexible with the rules and truly fight, instead of clinging to, oh, the rules. We must abide by them. Because Donald Trump and the Republicans definitely don't stick to the rules.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you celebrate the breaking of rules and laws. So what do we do?
Not celebrate. It's just vast majority of your colleagues did not vote to censure Al Green. You did. You didn't have to censure him. You could have said, I wouldn't have done it, but you didn't have to vote to censure him with all those Republicans, all those authoritarians, all those MAGA cultists.
I believe that when it comes to rules and law, contexts matter a little bit, but not a lot. Again, how do I answer somebody who says you voted to condemn Joe Wilson, but not Al Green? Law, you believe that the rules don't apply to your side. That would certainly be the common person's understanding of this.
I think
and there's not a terribly good answer to that.
I think you have a good answer, actually. I think you yourself have given the answer in the past. Let me I went through your Twitter for the last year.
God bless.
Here's what you've been saying about Donald Trump. You said he's betrayed our democracy. He's taking us into a constitutional crisis. He is, quote, breaking our democracy. He is dismembering our democracy. These are all your words about what Trump is doing. I don't think anyone thinks Barack Obama was doing that. George Bush, I have many criticisms. I think he's committed war crimes in Iraq, but I don't think he was trying to dismember American democracy. Trump is sui generis. I think that is your argument that you can make to the imaginary person who says, why did you do that but not this? You yourself have admitted that he is betraying our democracy, dismembering our democracy. If he's dismembering our democracy, then why on earth are you worried about the rules of what you do in the middle of his speech? A speech, by the way, in which he's insulting you to your face. He's calling you radical left lunatics. He's making racist jibes about Elizabeth Warren. You want to talk about politics? You guys look weak. The guy's bullying you and you're just sitting there quietly. Al Green looks strong.
So let's stay on the question that you asked, because I agree with that. I don't think anybody thought that the collective response at that speech was a good one. That's a different issue. But there are two answers to your question. Number one, we will cherish the rules more than they do because we are better than they are, and that matters. Every social movement in history that has actually achieved its ends has held themselves to a higher standard. Anti-apartheid, civil rights, you name it. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. That is our core strength.
They broke the rules.
Of course they broke the rules. Of course they broke the rules. We had this conversation, and you accept the circumstances.
All right, so Jim Hymes brings up this idea of cherishing the rules because we aim for a higher standard, right? Now, here's my prediction. Even if the Democrats manage to snag a win in the midterms and get a sliver of power, they're not going to act. They'll be saying, oh, sure, we'd love to push for initiatives like Medicare for All or bolstering Social Security and Medicaid. But we just can't because those pesky Republicans won't allow it. They're the ones breaking the rules while we have to stick to them. That's the scenario we're likely to see if the Democrats regain any control. It's like a replay set for 2028. The Republicans will probably make a comeback since we're stuck in this endless political seesaw. When Republicans are in charge, they tend to push boundaries and make decisions that don't sit well with most folks. The people vote them out, ushering in the Democrats with hopes they'll take real action. But once figures like Jim Hymes get their chance, they do absolutely zilch, like Mehdi Hasan points out. They're just so feeble. Then the public turns to the Republicans again to see what they might accomplish, leading us to catastrophes like we're seeing with this current Donald Trump administration.
Let me ask you this. You asked me a series of questions. You read my tweets. I am not at all confused about how dire the threat of Donald Trump is.
I appreciate that, which is why I don't get the disconnect.
Mehdi, our healthcare system in this country is probably responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. Deaths. You could even characterize our health insurance system as murderous because of that.
Yes.
People are denied care. Why should I object to the young man who decided that he would break the law against murder to kill a healthcare executive? Answer that question
Very
for me.
simple. A, it's against the law.
Yes.
B, murder is always morally wrong. I don't think standing up to heckle a president who is trying to dismantle democracy, calls himself a king, engages in white supremacist rhetoric, is targeting the media, is targeting political opponents, and mocking you all in the process. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's not it's nowhere near the same thing as murdering a healthcare executive.
Well, but they're on a spectrum here. You're making the argument that some rules are stronger and more compelling
I'm saying
than others.
do not murder is not the same thing as do not stand up and object to a man that you and I both think is a threat to democracy. We agree on that, right?
We
agree that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
But do you agree that all rules that are not obviously unjust, and the rule of house decorum or whatever it is not obviously unjust, that all rules that are agreed upon by both sides or whatever...
I'm not even objecting to the censuring. Like you said, the rule was broken, censuring. What I'm objecting to, and what a lot of activists are doing, is that you didn't need to vote for it. The 10 of you did that for some positioning or to send a message that we are, we believe in decorum, and that's what's bothered a lot of people.
Not that we believe in decorum, but that we believe in the rules, and that we seek to establish a dramatic difference between the Republicans who will move in lockstep, not hold their own people, but that we think and that we take the claims of rules seriously.
I think Al Green established the dramatic difference in showing that he's got some kind of energy in him. And you've even lost Bill Kristol on this. Lifelong neoconservative, supporter of centrist Democrats. He came out in favor of Al Green. He wrote, "Am I alone in feeling that it was good to see some fervent conviction and righteous indignation? Am I the only person who was actually kind of happy to see, in a sea of Democrats waving little paddles with lame messages, someone literally standing up to Trump?" He's right, isn't he?
He's right. But you're now making a different argument. I think I started this conversation by saying, I think I even support what Al Green did. The question is, was a censure right? And was it right for me to participate? That's the question. So Bill Kristol didn't go on to say, and by the way, Al Green did not go on to say, please don't censure me. In fact, he welcomed it.
From Republicans, not from his own colleagues.
Because he understands that
I feel like you're trying to have your cake and eat it, Congressman. So then why didn't you stand? Let's take your argument to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Why didn't you stand up, object to Trump in the same way, and then vote to censure yourself? Well, I mean, that's where your argument's taking you.
That's a sophomoric argument. I mean, I have thought a lot about how I could have done more. And by the way, here's what's, I think, driving the activist community. It's not detailed arguments about the nature of civil disobedience. There's an immense amount of fear out there that I share. And by the way, I don't just share it. I own it more than most, because I was one of the last people out of the chamber when Donald Trump sent a murderous crowd to end the Congress and to kill us. So I will give up nothing to nobody on the issue of understanding the fear. And I will fight that tooth and nail, as I always have. I did this for 4 years of Trump.
This is the usual rhetoric from Democrats that really grates on people's nerves. I'm not sure if Jim Hymas believes this approach will actually convince anyone. He seems to hope for some imaginary Republican in the suburbs who finds Donald Trump off-putting and might switch to voting Democrat. Honestly, that ship has sailed, or however the saying goes. Just recently, we saw polls regarding the situation in Iran. Before the bombing, about half of Republicans were okay with it. Unsurprisingly, when they were asked if they supported Trump's decision to bomb Iran after the fact, a whopping 94% were in favor. It's pretty clear there aren't any principled Republicans left. This guy's trying to appeal to their sense of principle is pointless. If they're still identifying as Republicans, they're all in with Trump. They're MAGA through and through, backing him wholeheartedly. As Mehdi Hasan suggests, Democrats need to toughen up. Jim Hymas could have shown some backbone by being willing to censure himself. What do you think about this stance? Do you side with Mehdi Hasan's call for Democrats, including Jim Hymas and others, to really take up the fight? Sure, don't stoop to the MAGA level, but fight hard. The usual norms, many of which were mutually respected, are no longer in play. MAGA folks expect rules to apply only to Democrats, not themselves. Share your thoughts in the comments. Should Democrats gear up for a real fight? Either Hymas joins the battle or steps aside for someone ready to take it on. Tell me what you think down below, give a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll catch you next time.